Welcome back to Under Oath. Welcome back to Under Oath. I'm attorney Jeff Kaufman. Sitting next to me is a good friend, James John, comedian extraordinaire, podcaster, Disney expert.
Yes.
Master of so many things.
Except the decisions I make. That's my wife's job.
Instead of my house.
It's her house.
See, there are rules.
Uh-huh.
You know, every man goes, I have to be the king of my castle. I don't want to be the king.
Neither do I.
I just don't want to be the janitor.
There you go.
You know, give me the same rights you got.
There you go. That's all I want.
You know, I don't want to fight.
No.
I get home, I'm just like, hey.
What's going on?
And I find this out, and I'm going to give some Jeff's love lessons.
Oh, I like this.
First off, when I use the word ladies, and you're offended, you're the one I'm talking to.
Please clip that up.
Oh, because here's the thing.
Uh-huh.
I deal with hostility day in and day out.
You do.
And you know who gets offended by terms? People who love conflict.
They want to fight.
They want to fight.
They do.
I don't have time. Hey, Jeff, douchebag. What do you got?
What do you want?
I'm good. You know why? Because calling me a douchebag is not the biggest problem I have. And that's where you have to ask yourself a question. Do I have enough conflict in my life?
Oh, my God.
That I don't need more?
I don't.
Here's how I know how it happens. A lot of monotony going on. You're bored. You've been taking a lot of crap. No, there's nobody else to unload on. Your spouse or significant other comes in. And this happens to me too. I can have a rotten day. And I realize I should have appreciated the person in the house when I walked in the door. And I didn't do that because I allowed my nonsense to drag out. Age has allowed me to go, this is the person I depend on to make me feel whole. So how about I give them more respect than I would an average person?
That's right.
So if you're in a relationship with somebody, give them 25% more. Take 25% off the edge of what they say. And I had to learn that lesson too, because, you know, as a lawyer, don't lawyer me. Yeah, I shouldn't have done that.
I didn't even think about the fact that could happen to you because you're in legal mode all day.
Yeah.
So you go home, you start being a lawyer at home, like, wait, we're not in court. Yeah, settle down.
Hey, I'm going to tell you something. The person who lives with you, that's your ride or die.
Yeah, it is. You know you love someone when they start calling you into the bathroom when they're using it.
Oh, no.
That's the worst part. No. I'm not going. No.
See, as I'm gonna give you a little secret, ladies. This is you don't normally walk into men's bathrooms.
No, they don't.
Now, men, we have a urinal.
We do.
Okay, you ladies used to have them. They invented them, and you go, no, we're not doing this.
Yeah.
You know, they were like little cups, and the women were told to Scott. And they go, we feel too stupid doing this.
No, they don't want to do that.
Well, the urinal, there are a couple things as far as rules go. Okay, first one, we don't talk at the urinal.
We don't talk.
If you do talk, you might have a problem, or we might think there's something wrong with you. Okay. Hey, so what do you think, you guys?
Whoa.
Nope.
You know the rules, buddy.
Nope.
All right. If it's out, mouth shut.
Out, mouth shut.
Yeah.
In, talk as much as you want.
Yeah.
Are you wigged out by the guy who doesn't use a zipper and like drops his whole pants so his butt's sticking out?
That's weird. Yeah. Do not do that because that
The
will
butt
freak
sticking
me
out
out.
guy?
No, man, no.
Now, my son's autistic and he does the butt sticking out thing.
That's okay. He gets a pass.
Well, he's a 20-year-old kid now.
Yes.
So I
see. That could be a problem. I get it.
Yeah. And it always tells you a lot about somebody.
By the way
they take care of their business. Like if we're good dudes, hey, and suddenly his butt's sticking out the urinal, I'm like, dude,
whoa.
I thought you were better than that. I don't know if we can be friends.
Who raised you?
Well, come on, man.
Yeah,
Where'd you learn this move?
Hey.
And then if you call him out because you're such good friends, that you like if you and I hit the urinal and you know, James's ass is sticking out, we're gonna have a conversation. We know each other well enough. All right, James, before we go into the bathroom again, dude, what's wrong with the zipper? And you're going to say, well, I just feel more comfortable. Your comfort is secondary to my comfort.
My pants should never feel comfortable on a bathroom floor that's public. Never. Is that okay?
So if you're dude, hey, just use the zipper. Don't go full booty on me.
That's a good actual.
Yeah, don't go half Monty
PSA,
on me,
if you will.
Yeah, no booties in the bathroom.
All right. I have a legally screwed.
Okay.
That's what we came here to do. I don't know if you knew that. Yeah. This is a good one, too, because my HOA bans my roofer mid-project. Oh, yeah.
Okay. You know, when somebody says this to me, this is like somebody calling me and they give me this part. I'm so offended. And then I look over at James and I say, for what?
Let me
Well, hold on. It's not as bad as you think. It is as bad as I think.
It is. This is actually,
Go ahead.
it is. And I got the knee-jerk reaction. I was offended.
I'm offended.
And then I read it. I'm
hold
like,
on.
oh.
Hold on. I'm missing part of this.
Yes, you are. Here, listen. I hired this roofer and received HOA approval for the work.
Okay.
While replacing my roof, the contractor started going door to door soliciting neighbors for business, despite being told not to. Now, after repeated warnings, the HOA banned him from the community. He pulled his crew, left my roof unfinished, and refused a refund because he claimed the situation was out of his control.
Just like the mayor from Seattle. Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's hard, brother.
Yep. And here's the thing.
Mm-hmm.
I hate homeowners associations.
They're not my favorite.
I hate them. You know how many people come to me, Jeff, could you? No.
Mm-mm.
Personal injury.
Mm-hmm.
You know the area of law sucks when the personal injury guy is offended by it.
Yeah.
I get called an ambulance chaser, and I'm happier than that than dealing with an HOA.
HOA. God bless, man.
HOAs are angry people. These are people with no lives. And if you're on an HOA board, shut up. Don't tell me that. You know, we had our guy go by in the
They measure
grass
your
was
grass.
1.25 inches.
Bro, who has that kind of time?
Oh, they do.
They do. Yeah.
They do. You know why? Because they had jobs before this.
They're retired now.
They're retired.
And they need to feel important.
We need our conflict.
Yes.
We need our conflict.
Yes.
Now, bad news. You agreed to it.
Yes. You signed up.
You signed up.
You agreed to live there.
You agreed to the rules and the covenants of
Yes.
the HOA.
Gotcha.
You agreed to the covenants.
Yes.
And the problem is, so did the people who do work for you.
Yeah.
So when they okay a guy and he violates those covenants, bye-bye. Now, the only question that I'm concerned about is this. Does the contractor have to pay the difference in cost to get the job finished? So let's say it was a $100,000 roof. And don't look at me and say, that's a lot.
No, it ain't.
No, it ain't.
No, it ain't.
That's standard now.
Mhm.
You get jacked.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's say he's done $50,000 of the work and you've paid him $50,000 of work, but he has $50,000 of the contracted work left.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't find anybody who's willing to do it for that price to finish.
Yes.
He could be responsible for the difference.
That would actually put him in breach of contract.
Yes.
Okay.
He breached the contract by violating the covenant and getting kicked off the job.
Okay.
Okay. Now the question is, if you can find somebody to do the work for less or the same price, he's off the hook.
Okay.
So, but yeah, it sucks. You can go back to HOA and beg, but you know who complained? Your neighbors.
That's right.
Your neighbors goes, the guy who's doing their house is coming by my house and annoying me.
Mm-hmm.
Door to door, it used to be normal.
That's gone away.
Okay. But
Yeah.
party's over.
Yep. That's done.
I don't want you knocking on my door.
Mm-mm. Especially gated communities with HOAs.
And people don't understand that is that our privacy, our time has value.
Yes.
And how you're benefiting yourself
Mm-hmm.
doesn't mean anything to me.
Not one thing.
So I live in a community that doesn't allow that.
Mm-hmm.
Or, for example, I live in a condo. Nobody's knocking on my door.
If
you knock on my door,
yeah, I was gonna say
we got a problem.
Yeah.
And somebody's going to hear about it because I pay HOA dues to protect my privacy.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there is a bad Michael Jordan story. I don't know if it's true or not, but I love this story. Supposedly, Michael Jordan was buying a place in Orlando.
Okay.
And his wife at the time came in and they wouldn't let her in.
Really?
And she was livid.
Okay.
And this is the story.
Okay.
And she called him up, Michael up, and was like, they won't let me in. I'm so mad. He goes, good. I don't want them to let anybody in. That's their job.
And they're doing their job.
Now, I don't know if this is a true story,
Okay.
but this is, hey, I support exactly. If Michael did happen to him and this is the way it worked, absolutely. I pay for privacy.
And yeah.
And when you don't get it,
Mm-hmm.
it lowers the value of what I'm paying for that privacy.
You're right.
It lowers the price of security. It lowers my HOA dues. So I'm going, okay, if you're going to do this, then I shouldn't have to pay this and this and this.
You're right.
So they are protecting the community.
Mm-hmm.
I want to paint my house pink.
Mm-mm.
I walk out and you got the one pink house on the
Nope.
No.
No.
And people go, that's ridiculous. I should have a right to do. No.
No.
You're paying for uniformity, but
That
you're
is-
also paying for something else, value.
Yes.
And that means if I sell my house,
Mhm.
depending on the quality of everybody else, my property value goes up or down.
That's right.
So if my neighbor doesn't cut his yard and he's got rats in his yard and the roof is falling
It
down,
affects my
my
property
property
value.
value goes down.
That's right.
So an HOA's job is also to protect property values. So if you move into one, you do that by choice.
That's right.
And you have now agreed to lose a certain amount of your freedoms by this.
And we do it.
And that's on
happily.
you. But if they go against their own rules, you might have an argument.
Gotcha. Here's how I see it. I live in an HOA neighborhood. The neighbors are the ones who told, and here's how I know why.
Narcs.
Because, like you said, we pay for privacy, and I find myself being guilty of this. If you knock on my door and you try to solicit, I'm like, wait a minute. You're not supposed to be in this neighborhood bothering me. No, I'm going to tell somebody. Guess who I'm telling?
HOA?
The same HOA that I hate. Yes.
Ooh.
Yeah.
It's the same issue that police officers have.
Explain.
You love them when they're going after other people.
Facts.
This is a pleasure because my friend sitting next to me, Cosmo, very rarely do you get to talk to a guy about a life that he's gotten to live. And if you look at him, you're going to go, I don't know him. But what you will know is everything he's done, which nobody ever sees the production. They see the guy in front on stage. You know, you see the Steven Tyler, you don't realize, oh, this is the guy who lit Steven Tyler for 30 years, 40 years. And I can't even imagine what that's like. Thank you for being on the show.
It's a pleasure and my honor to be here, finally.
You need a book. No, you need a book, and not one of those tell-all books.
No.
But I'm talking about if you want to experience a life. This is a life I wanted, and I went after it. And here are some of the amazing things that I've seen and some of the lessons I've learned on the road. And I can't imagine the effect that would have, on people who are going after a dream. I mean, how you fell, one phone call changed your existence.
Yeah.
So tell us about that.
Well, I worked. I started working in New York in 1979. I mean, I was a frustrated musician, which I think most of us are in the business, and I came back down to Florida in the early 80s, around 80, 81, I came back and I started working with the local stagehands. And I worked at Lakeland Civic Center at the concerts, and I would give my number to every, roadie that came in and, never heard anything. And then I ran into the same guy. He was a lighting guy named Gordy Barden, and I kept giving him my number. And I mean, the chain of events. See, this is the thing how the universe works. And the chain of events was that I was living in a home that I had to move out of, and I moved in with my brother-in-law at the time, and we were waiting to try to buy a house, and we didn't get the house. So we moved into an apartment, but basically the guy that from the lighting company in Dallas, Texas, called TTR, had my number at my first place, and then I moved to my brother-in-law, so he had that number, and then I moved to an apartment in Altamont Springs, and literally I moved on a Friday, and the phone didn't get turned on until Monday. Well, Richard Hartman actually called my brother-in-law that morning, who answered the phone amazingly because he liked to sleep in late. He had the wherewithal to find my new phone number, and thankfully my number had been turned on. So my wife at the time answered the phone. I wasn't even there. I was at a Midas muffler shop getting a new muffler put on, and she knew where I was and called me there. So all these things could have gone wrong. Just one missed phone call, it would have never happened. And I she called me, and so I called Richard, and they needed a guy immediately for the band The Cure on the lighting crew. So that one phone call changed my life.
Can you be in Chicago overnight or something like
Basically,
that? Right?
Can you be in Chicago tomorrow morning?
The dream was, hey, I want to go on tour. I want to do things. And a lot of people listening, and I'm sad that you might not know who The Cure was, but back then The Cure was a beast.
Yep.
I mean, they were that had been one of those shows you're going, wow, this is going to be amazing. Tens of thousands of people, 50,000. You didn't know how. You've done shows where, million people.
Yeah, we did in 1991. AC/DC played in Moscow at a Toshino airfield. 1.6 million people, they say, were there.
How do you even fit 1.6 million into something?
Well, it was an airfield, and it was, back in those days, nobody had cars. It was all public transportation, and they had buses, So, I mean, it was people were arriving the night before, for the show.
Now, a lot of people don't know the setup for the person in charge of the lighting. They're sometimes in the audience, 40 rows back or 50 rows back, in a little square area, and everyone's around you. I can't imagine you looking around and going, how many people are here? I mean, is that just humbling, or are you just going, this is, I don't even know how to respond?
Well, it is very humbling, and being in the middle of it, it's amazing. I mean, I've been doing this for 47 years, and it never wears off. When I look around, I mean, before every show, I put a post on Facebook a while ago that when I walk out, when the opening act is on, I walk out right towards their end of their show. Because I need to be out at front of house, the area where I run the lights from. I have to be out there ready to go when they finish. But I also want to take in the audience as they're finishing their set, and I walk through the crowd and go to my position. And it's just, I never get tired of it.
God, I've been fortunate enough. Cosmo took care of me one time. I used to be on another show, and I was flying into Vegas, and I guess he saw something I posted on Facebook. And he was like, hey man, I'm not in Vegas with Aerosmith this weekend, but let me hook you up with my boy Carrot Top's manager, and you could do that. And I was going, well, that was really nice. And I didn't know you that well. And I was like, that was really nice of him. And then the next time I was flying in, you said, hey, you want to sit with me, in the cage while we do for Aerosmith? And I was going, yeah, that'd be amazing. I didn't realize how amazing that would be, because I found myself watching you more than I was watching the show. And here's the stupidity. Everyone thinks, oh, it's a computer. You just push a button and it just, the whole show is up there. Watching you were playing an instrument, but it's an instrument of light.
Correct.
And it moves around. And yes, you have an idea where it might move, but you always have to be aware of minute changes that are happening in milliseconds.
Well, exactly. And, and especially, I'm very fortunate that I work with all these classic rock bands, and they, there's a lot of newer bands that run the time code, and I get it. I don't have anything against it. But there's something about, the way a band like Aerosmith or AC/DC plays. I mean, Aerosmith is known as being sloppy, not in a bad way. They just play music.
They choose.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is I run lights the same way. I'm not sloppy, but I mean, if they slow the tempo down or if they change something, I change accordingly. It's not cut and dried. I mean, I lay out, the looks and all the different colors and different patterns that I use. I lay them out. And, I run the same show every night pretty much, but I can always change things up.
Now, a lot of people, when you talk about this stuff, they don't understand. They go, oh, what's a famous lighting guy? I mean, can lighting guy be famous? You've been a top 5 guy for decades.
Yeah, it's funny.
Where every year people in your field get together and they go, who are the top 5 guys? And they have these awards they have. Is it in Vegas normally?
Well, they have 2 different awards. They have the biggest one's called the Parnelli Awards, and it used to be in Vegas, and it's in Anaheim now. It's during the NAMM show. I've won twice, which is only a few people have won twice. I won 10 years apart. It was so that was quite the honor for that. There's another award called the Pinnacle Awards, and it's a conference that happens in Palm Springs. And I've won several of those awards over the years.
I've had the opportunity to watch a lot of different people. Some people in your position, some people in the sound position, some people who are stage managers and everything else like that. When the people who run the 9/11 commission call you and say, listen, we want you to light every year for September 11th. And they come to you and they say, we want you to do this. Is it just something you go, oh my God?
Well, I mean,
huge.
it's not as cut and dried as that. I mean, it was brought about 6 months after by a guy named Michael Ahern, who was the production manager for the Rolling Stones tour I did in 89 and 90, the Steel Wheels tour. And he's the one who put it together. Several people were designers in the original project when they started doing this, and it wasn't expected to last. The overall lighting designer was a guy named Paul Morantz, who sadly died, I think, last year. I knew these people, and I went to New York every year just to pay homage to, you know, the what had happened. It was my way of, you know, dealing with what had happened. So after several years, they said to me, "You were here all the time." You know, I knew Michael Ahern and the team, and they said, "Why don't you come up, you know, and work it with us and help us put together the lights and stuff." So that was a great honor for me. So ever since then, I'm pretty much there every year, you know, that I can. I haven't been there every year. It depends on work. So it wasn't the 9/11 people who asked me to do it. It was the production team that puts the lights up. You know, I always say I'm just part of the team that puts the lights up, but it is a great honor for me to be there every single year that I can. And I know what it means to not just Americans, but to the world.
You were fortunate and you earned it. You did a lot of work and you put yourself in a position and you marketed yourself and put yourself out there. You get the job and you're traveling now. Do you say to yourself, this is where I want to be? Or do you even envision it? Or are you just like, hey, I'm doing my job every day?
Well, it's going back to, I mean, I went to see Kiss in 1976 and I was already into playing guitars, you know, I was already into music. And I saw Kiss so it's 50 years. I saw Kiss at Lakeland Civic Center and, you know, Ace Frehley. I was a guitar player. I wanted to be a guitar player. I played guitar. I wanted to be a rock star. You know, I was 15 years old. I wanted to be a rock star. I told my mom I was going to be a rock star by the time I was 18. That didn't work out. You know, but it evolved. I mean, when I was younger, I wanted to be a fighter pilot. I wanted to be an airline pilot. I was into airplanes. And I moved to New York. I played in a band in high school, you know, like a Southern rock band. And then I moved to New York in 78. And I was trying to get a job. And a friend of mine that I went to high school in New York with a few years prior was working with a band in New York called Falconetti, and they needed a drum tech. And he said, "Do you want to come and be a drum tech?" I knew nothing. I could play drums a little bit from being in a band, but I didn't know. So oddly enough, the first gig I did, it didn't really go any better because I didn't have a chance to play with the drums, you know, and they were not going to hire me. I said, "Give me a chance. Let me go to the rehearsal studio and set it up." And so the few days later I did that and they hired me and I started doing that. And I was a drum tech. And then my thing with, you know, and I tell this to young people, my thing is never say no. Especially today when you have all YouTube, you can go to YouTube and learn stuff. I mean, they would say, do you want to be a bass tech for this? Do you want to be a keyboard tech, guitar tech? I would learn stuff. I would talk to my friends and say, well, how do you do this? How do you work this tuner and stuff like that? So I started doing anything for bands, you know, that had to do with, I was called a backline tech, you know, tuning guitars, setting up drums. And then I moved back to Florida and I started working as a stagehand. And I wanted to work concerts, so I started working the local concerts as a stagehand, and you know I worked with the sound crew, the lighting crew. I worked with the backline guys, the carpenters, you know, whoever as a stagehand, and so that's what I did. But the way I got into lighting is you would have to push boxes from the truck to the stage, and it was boring. So the first guys I went to work with, the lighting guys. So what I would do is wait until I knew they were going to start asking guys to go on the stage to help to bolt together trusses and hang fixtures and stuff. And then that's how I ended up doing lighting. And at the time, did I know I wanted to be an LD? The one thing I knew I wanted to be when I was in New York is I wanted to be on the road. I wanted to tour. I mean, I've always wanted to tour the world since I was a kid. I wanted to see places. But that's my goal at that point was I want to go on the road.
You're on the road. You're doing lighting. You're not the lighting director.
Right. No, I'm a lighting crew. I'm not even a crew chief. I'm a crew guy.
And somebody goes, hey, the offer has to come up. Somebody leaves or somebody, you know.
Well, this is how this happens, and it still happens to this day. So you have, the first tour I did was The Cure, and then I went, after that I went out with, I did a Barbara Mandrell thing, and then I went out with Genesis on The Invisible Touch, which is a huge tour. You know, that was a big year-long tour worldwide. I flew on the Concorde. And then after Genesis, I went and did another Cure tour and another Barbara Mandrell tour. And then I went out with NXS. But what happens is there's always an opening act. There's a support act. And most support acts don't have the money to carry an LD. They'll carry a sound engineer, monitor engineer, tour manager, maybe a backline tech or two, but rarely an LD. So they just have one of the lighting crew on the tour for the, you know, for say NXS. They asked them to run lights, and back in the day, they paid them $50 or $100 a day or a show, you know, and you went up and that was the first time I ran lights was on the NXS tour, and this is 1987 or 88, and it was for a band called Steel Pulse. They were the opening act.
Yep.
So I did that, and I fell in love with it. You know, it was great. You know, I'm an artist anyway. Another thing that you do, just to throw another, is spotlights operators. When I was a stagehand, I ran Spotlight. So the LD talks to the Spotlight and tells them what
Right.
color to be in, who to be on. So I learned how to call spots listening to the LDs for like Rush and, you know, Pink Floyd and all the different bands that came through Lakeland Civic Center because I worked as a stagehand there. That was my first gig as a lighting director, was for the opening acts.
You have certain bands that love you. If you're available, they want you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and two of those bands, you know, you got AC/DC and Aerosmith.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting that, you know, both those bands tour sometimes at the same time.
Right.
You know, how do they decide who gets you?
Well, in respect to that, I mean, AC/DC I've worked with for 36 years. So they're first, you know, they're number one on the list. And when I get a job with another band, like when I started with Aerosmith, I told Steven Tyler, I said, listen, when AC/DC goes out, they get first dibs. And he's like, okay. Of course, when it happened, he wasn't happy about it, but he said, you told me that. So that's what I tell bands.
You've told me, because when we did the show, that Steven is like a perfectionist. And a lot of people, they see somebody's image on stage or something, they go, oh, yeah, this is the hard charger party and everything else. And they talk about all the drugs and everything else. But most importantly, you've told me how much he cares about the quality of his show and that he's always getting notes on every show.
Yep.
Is there ever a point where you feel safe, where you're going, okay, I screwed this up?
Well, I mean, you don't, you live and die, as I say, you live and die by each cue, by each lighting cue. And it's just like, oh, what is Steven going to say? You know, and first of all, you want to do the best job you can, you know, and that becomes apparent when you're honest about it, when you're, you know, this is, you know, I'm doing the best I can. I'm not lazy. You know, it's, you know, art is art. It's hard to say, well, Cosmo, why did you use that color? Well, I liked it. Well, I don't. Okay, then I won't use it again. You know, Steven is a perfectionist, and I'm not going to say he's not a micromanager. He does give me leeway. You know, he loves me to come up with ideas. All bands like you to do that, and I want to hear their ideas and stuff. And but it's, oh yeah, every night you go, you know, I hope I don't screw up.
Now, the hardest thing that I would think traveling with a band is, especially a big band, is stuff happens. You know, and you're sitting back there going, okay, are we going to have a show tomorrow? You know, you're talking 100 people or more dependent on that band playing that night. And when something stops that from happening or causes conflict, I mean, do you just sit there and go, okay, I got you. I'll just show up. I'm just going to do my job. Or does it emotionally affect you?
Well, I mean, it does. I mean, I'll give you, for instance, I did the Hollywood Vampires, I think in 2023, and we were touring Europe, and it was huge. I mean, you know, we played all over the place. We played a lot of old Eastern Bloc countries, and we were playing in Budapest at the arena there. I mean, it was a sold out show, like 14,000 people. It was huge, especially for the Hollywood Vampires. And Johnny got sick, you know, and we set up. We were all ready to go. Doors had been open.
Yep.
And doctor came and saw him, and he was just unable to perform. And, you know, they discussed maybe we can go on without him, but it's like, well, no, people came to see the three, you know, Alice, Joe Perry, and Johnny Depp. And Johnny was like, well, you go without me, okay, but, you know, they knew better. It wouldn't work. So sadly, we canceled the show right before doors. I mean, it just gutted us. Everybody in the crew was just so sad and you know, and all these people saying, oh, Johnny had a hangover. And Johnny was sick. Johnny would never cancel the show unless he couldn't do it.
How many times have you had to, I mean, you probably can count it on two hands. How many times you fully set up and it didn't happen?
You know, a few times we've here's the thing. For insurance, you have to set up, even if, you know, the singer will wake up in the morning and say, I'm sick. And, well, he has to see a doctor, and the doctor has to say you're too sick to go on. You know, it's very, you know, it's insurance purposes. So you still have to set up, go through the motions. They don't really tell us, you know, you might get wind of it. You know, this may not happen. I mean, it happened a lot. I did Black Sabbath, and it happened a few times on that. You know, we got wind that Ozzy was sick, you know, and they said, well, just We don't think it's going to happen, but set up. And it's, should we plug things in or should we just go through the motions? But you never know because things change. People do get better. So you still want to be show ready until the doctor says he cannot perform.
Bringing up Black Sabbath, I had the opportunity, I do stand up too. So I travel all over the country and I got to do a lot of openings for Jim Florentine, who did, that metal show.
Yep. With Eddie Trunk. Yep.
And he was talking about, seeing, Ozzy's last show. And what that was like and how devastating that was for everyone there. And you've worked with certain musicians who, without mentioning any names, who no longer can perform or they're sick. And when I say sick, not like that day, but I mean, it's going downhill fast.
Mm-hmm.
When you watch somebody still performing and they bring him out in a wheelchair or something else like that, how does that make you feel? Are you like going, well, it's their choice, but is it right to do that?
Well, it depends on the circumstances. For instance, Ozzy, a lot of people, when Ozzy first said he couldn't perform, when he said, I can't perform anymore because I can't stand. And people were like, oh, well, why can't he just sit in a chair or on a stool on the stage? And I'm like, well, there's more to it. There's 90 minutes on that stage, but look at what he has to do. He has to leave his house, get on a plane, get in cars, hotels. Everything leading up to that 90 minutes is hard work. It's hard work traveling. Even as a rock star in private jets and stuff like that, it's still hard work traveling, especially for someone who can barely walk. So people look at me and go, oh, now I understand. But it depends. I worked with Meatloaf back in 2008, and he was struggling with his voice, but he was still very good. And then the thing about that tour is he was putting 120% into it, and you could tell, and the audience loved it, even though he wasn't pitch perfect. And it's like people talk about David Lee Roth, and you hear people, singers that have a hard time singing.
Dave, yeah.
It's their prerogative if they want to go do it, and people complain about it. I'm like, well, if you don't want to go, don't buy a ticket. If you want to complain, that's your right. It's your opinion.
Now, Diamond Dave has a special place in your heart because he was very important as far as your career being a lighting director.
Yeah.
And you had told me once about how generous he was with you.
Yes.
As far as his advice and his support. And a lot of people don't know that about him.
Well, I love David, and I hate hearing people complain about his voice and stuff like that. I've not seen him, and I see stuff on videos and it's mixed. Some of it's good, some of it's not so good, but he's up there still performing and you want to see a legend. But, I was fortunate. I worked with him in 94 and, we got along great. I love David. There's one thing, him and Steven Tyler share a huge intelligence. They're so smart and savvy. They both amaze me in that respect. But yeah, David was so giving with advice and really good life advice, and that he signed a photo to me and he says, Cosmo, you don't know how good you really are. And that really that filled me. It filled my cup. I'm getting, my body's electric right now thinking about him saying that and how much that meant to me. And he knew it. He knew what to say. And that was the first tour that I was the lighting designer on a headline tour. It was my first tour where I was the man, I'd done AC/DC, but I'd co-designed it with other people, but that was my first show that was mine. And he was great. I love David.
That's the thing. These moments, like when we talked about the book, greatest moments, like one chapter, greatest advice I've been ever given by rock icons. Everybody wants to write something. I was interviewing somebody the other day who was writing this book about, and it's not kind, and some bad things about some people who wouldn't want that to happen. I think what you could do, some of the stories from the road you would tell would be, oh, this was a great moment. This was this. And people would go, wow, more like a dream than the negative.
Well, let's talk about it. I've actually written a book.
Okay.
I have a co-writer in Cape Coral. And we started writing it during the pandemic. I went down there to visit him and I've kind of shelved it just because I need to edit it and go through it. The thing is, the book is twice as long as it should be.
You
And
get
so I have-
250. You get about 250 pages.
Yeah,
What do you have,
exactly.
like 500
I'm
or
up to
something?
500. Yeah, I'm up to 150,000
People do that.
words.
Oh, God.
You know, and it's hard. You start, what am I going to cut out of it? And everybody says, do volume 2. I'm like, well, what do I put in volume 1? What don't I put in volume 1? But that's the thing in my book is it's not a dirty laundry. It's not a tell-all. It's first of all, it's basic. The basic feel of the book for me is how fortunate I've been, how the universe works, and how being in the right place at the right time, and the influence that all these people have had on me, and gratitude. And it's a bunch of stories and stuff like the ones I'm telling right now. And so that's where we are with the book. I just need to finish it.
My law partner was asking me before this interview. He goes, "How much are you going to talk about AC/DC? Because they've had to have some fill-in singers, and some very big guys have stepped in. How does changing out, somebody who's that important to a band with another important guy, he's not the same. How does that affect, let's just say, the tour? Is there a different feeling when you're out on tour when, one guy gets swapped out for another? I mean, does that change the dynamic? Does it change the environment? Or is it going, no, we're playing the music. We're doing what we can?
Well, this is the Axl Rose and AC/DC story, and that it was a drag what happened with Brian and stuff, and the whole thing is AC/DC wanted to finish the tour. We had, I think, 20 shows to go.
Yeah.
And their thing is finish the tour.
Responsibility to your audience.
Exactly, and they offered money back to anybody who wanted a refund, and I think there was I think 15 to 20% of tickets were refunded, but they were bought up.
I would assume people would go, well, I like him.
Well, there's lots
Everyone
of people
has their
who,
fan base.
They don't like Axl Rose, and I understand why certain things, with his late performances and when he was with Guns N' Roses and stuff like that. But it was an interesting. I didn't know who was going to do it at the time. There was talk they were going to,
That's a big choice to go, okay, who are you going to get? We're bringing in Axl Rose. I mean,
well,
even for
exactly.
you must have been like going, what? Is that real, or is that sounds like gossip?
Well,
that
that's the
real.
thing. From what I was told, I did some stuff with Guns N' Roses a very long time ago, and I know Slash really well, but Axl wanted to do it, and through a series of contacts and events, he got in to try out, and obviously it worked because he got the job. And the thing is, everybody gives him a hard time. I got to say, he was so respectful of the whole situation. He was respectful of Angus. He didn't see Brian. I mean, obviously there could have been some animosity there, but Brian wasn't there. So I don't know what had happened with that. But I mean, I can tell you that, Axl came to see a show and it was fine, and Brian was fine. So, it happened. But I mean, Axl went on that stage and he said, I'm not changing. I don't want to change anything. I just want to come up and sing, and he wasn't the Axl Rose of Guns N' Roses. He was the fill-in singer for AC/DC. He would step back and let Angus do his solos. I mean, it was great. People saw it. You saw it every night. And it was a great tour. And it was different, having Axl, but he didn't want to change the songs, the set lists or anything. The cool thing was they added songs that, were old Bon Scott songs that Brian hadn't sung. So it was great hearing the older songs, and, it's, but as I said, it was 20 shows. It was mixed reviews, but mainly opinions. I mean, I think he did a great job, and it finished the tour out, and it was great.
I had forgotten you worked with Journey. I had forgotten that, and Journey was my first concert in 1981.
Wow!
And I saw them. They were playing with. It was kind of funny because they were playing with Sammy Hagar. Sammy Hagar was there, Bryan Adams, and Aerosmith.
Okay.
And it was at a baseball field in Miami back in like 81. And, it was amazing to me. And, they always talk about Steve Perry coming back.
Right.
They always say that. And I'm like going, those notes are hard. But for a young guy, much less for somebody, in their 60s. And people don't get it. That's why you have backup singers. That's why the backups will help carry a note when you can't.
Well, that's what David Lee Roth did.
Yeah.
I mean, David Lee Roth had a great bunch of backup singers, and Journey. I did a little short stint with Journey, and it was fun. And it was. I love working with bands that I love listening to, and I'm very fortunate that I worked with so many. and they were great. And I mean, I did a few months with them, and I was asked to carry on, but it just conflicted with so many other things. And there's a lot, Journey's known for a lot of drama, and I try to stay out of that stuff.
I think a lot of egos, a lot of, when you're on the road, you're performing, what upsets people, being stuck. I mean, I can't imagine that environment where you're always on top of each other every day and you're traveling and the effort and the setting up and the new group and remembering what city you're in. I had a buddy of mine who used to be the trainer for the Magic. And he said, I had to write my room number down on something every day or take a picture of it. And I had to remember where the bathroom was in my hotel room.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm the same way with that kind of thing. I mean, I keep my room key in my pocket and I keep it in this little slipper so I know the room number. I mean, I'm pretty good about remembering, but yeah, I'm in a different room every day, and that's the same thing. You wake up in the middle of the night to use the restroom and you go, which side of the bed is it on? And it's dark. So
you hooked me up with your favorite Korean barbecue place we went to.
Mm-hmm.
They kind of went downhill a little bit.
Oh, did they? I haven't been there in a while.
There's been about there are 4 others that are doing really well in Vegas now. And I remember going, and I took people for years.
Mm-hmm.
Since we went, I've probably been like 20, 30 times every time I'm there, and it's fantastic. And that is the one thing about what you get to do. You get to have your favorite restaurants, and you get to have your favorite restaurants all over the world.
All over the world, yeah.
Is that crazy? You go, oh, we're going to Istanbul. This is my favorite place.
Oh, yeah, I mean, exactly. And I actually do, I call them day sheets, but they're, I used to do like a funny newsletter on the tour, but now it's basically what to do on your day off, listing, sightseeing or if there's any baseball games or sporting events, and then restaurants, and it's great.
You'd actually, maybe one chapter on a travel guide.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because, you've been you've had the opportunity to see the world, over and over again. I mean, you're like serving in the Navy with as much as you've been traveling.
Yeah.
I can't imagine your favorite restaurants if they still exist. Well,
that's great because people reach out to me all the time and go, "Hey, Cosmo, I'm in Berlin," and I just send them the sheet that I have for it. And so I always get that. Where do you recommend in Portugal, in Lisbon? Where do you recommend in Buenos Aires? What's the best steakhouse in Buenos Aires? And
I love that. When we talk about bands, and I go to concerts all the time. I'm constantly seeing shows. I saw Rod Stewart again the other night, and I've seen Rod Stewart when he was younger, and now I see him now. And the music, I don't know if I'll feel the same way about a younger artist that, let's say just got started now. Will I feel that way 20 years ago when I go to there? Do we create rock stars anymore?
Well, I think it's, here's how I put it. So, and I was born in 61, so 70, let's take 75. And the music that was there then. I was 14 years old. I was into the Beatles, but, they were already broken up, but Beatles are my favorite band then. But you look at music in the 70s and all the bands, Deep Purple, and you can go on and on. I could list, from even disco, there was this music that was just still around today. So 50 years, so it's 1975. So 76 was 50 years ago. That music is still relevant. That music is still listened to. Young people even like it.
Yeah.
And I'm just using 75, 76 because it's 50 years ago. Well, let's go back to 1925 when I was 15 years old in 1976. Talk about old and archaic. I mean, there's obviously music from that time period, but it had no effect on me. Maybe my grandparents. It
was cleaner though. It felt clean.
Oh yeah, but it wasn't. It didn't stick around.
Right.
People you still have radios. I don't know if there were radio stations in 1975 that played stuff from 1925.
So 60s to 90s. After that, we're stuck with what we're stuck with. Every song has 20 producers on it. Some of it feels artificial. Some of it might be artificial.
Yeah.
I remember working with a group when I was younger, and to do one song, we would be in the studio for 7 days, 14 days to get it right. Now you knock out a song in a day and it's clean. Maybe it's too clean.
I mean, my question is, I'm sure there are young people who play in their garage or play in their room and, local, bands. Most of them do covers, but you think about most of the bands who became big were playing covers back then. in the 60s and 70s. But then they had this songwriting, like you look at the stuff Aerosmith wrote, or any band, there was much, I don't know. And there was it's like Smoke on the Water, the guitar lick on that. There's certain things, it's a series of notes. Yeah, I remember hearing years ago, are all the different series of notes taken and done? I'm like, well, no, you can still come up with stuff. I mean, but yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's like I went to see Triumph in Tampa about 3 or 4 weeks ago. And Triumph, I saw them in 1982. They were that that band. They had a sound. They were big. They're an unusual band because they didn't play anything for 30 years. It's like other bands like AC/DC or, Black Sabbath. They played every so often, whether it was every other year, 2 years, 5 years. They were still around and relevant there as well. But Triumph just kind of went off. So when I went to the show, it was great. It was like a trip down memory lane. It was great hearing all this music. I mean, like I said, 82 is when I saw them, at the High Life Fronton here in Orlando.
It's hard when you feel that you're hearing a song and you're automatically back to, I was 18, I was 24.
Well, exactly.
I was 30.
And I thought about and even Rick Emmett, the singer guitar player, he said, he was blown away that people still listen to his music. And he said, I wrote these songs with meaning. When I wrote them, and it's like, do people write those songs anymore? I'm sure there are, but songs back then had meaning. And I'm not deriding any of the new music or anything like that. But
I used to walk to school through 6 feet of snow. No, I get it. I don't know what it is. I see more shows now than I did when I was younger. Mm-hmm. In fact, I fight to go see them. And it doesn't matter. I found out I'm open up to a lot of different genres than I used to be. I see a lot of country shows now. I see a lot of, but it's still hard because I was in Canada and it was so painful. I was in Niagara Falls and I found out the waitress says to me, she goes, oh, I'm going to Genesis in Toronto. What the hell are you talking about? She goes, yeah, Phil Collins back. And it's about 2 hours away.
Mm-hmm.
I bought tickets in the restaurant and hauled ass to Toronto that night to see Genesis. And he was in a wheelchair.
Right.
And he had some backup singers. And I was going, wow, the song, there's a memory to that.
Yep.
But what I was looking at was rough.
Yeah.
And I was like, come on, Phil. And then I'm thinking, is he there because it's making him happy? And if he's there because he's making him happy or he needs the money, okay. But if they're kind of forcing him out there, that's a whole different thing. And I don't quite know how to respond to that. And makes me feel old sometimes. And it makes me feel like, hey, maybe he should not have done that. But I don't know.
Well, I mean, I agree. I mean, I went to see, in the last few months, I saw a flock of seagulls in Mount Dora, and
Ran. Oh my God.
I saw, who Lena Lovitch is.
Yeah.
I mean, she was a new wave. I saw her in Mount Dora. It's great seeing, and they are all up there having a great time. Like you said, that means a lot that they're up there playing and they're not going through the motion. They're not forced. I went to see, who did I see the other? Nazareth. And I think the original bass player.
Yeah,
but
one guy, like Chicago. Every once in a while I see Chicago, I'm going, who is alive for this? And there's the one dude on bass.
Well, I laugh at, because Lynyrd Skynyrd and Foreigner are doing a tour together this summer. And it's like, there's no original member in either band, but it's perfect. I
love Foreigner so much. Oh my God.
Well, I mean, there's the guys that have been there for quite a while, and it's Mick Jones is still involved and was, involved, he was in that band, he's just not there anymore, and Lynyrd Skynyrd, a lot of the same guys have been in Skynyrd for a very long time. So I don't put him down. A lot of people put him down. People that drive me nuts when people complain about.
Hey, if it introduces people to the music, it's a good thing. But it's been happening longer. We're not making fun of this now. I mean, come on, all the Motown people.
Yeah.
They go, One Pip is alive, or I saw Gladys Knight before she died, and it was Gladys Knight and the Pips, and she had one Pip.
Mm-hmm.
And my dad, who was probably about 5 years before he passed, it made him so happy. I mean, we were sitting like at the front row at the not the MGM, maybe it was a Sands, I don't remember, but he was so. This was bringing his life back to him.
Well, see, that's the thing. And we were talking about David Lee Roth. I mean, people complain he can't sing or has issues singing, but you're seeing a legend and you're still, it takes you back. This is like you were saying about nostalgia. That's the whole thing. And I think this music will carry on. My thing is in 10 years, all these guys will be gone. They'll be dead. I mean, and you have people like David Coverdale, from Whitesnake. Whitesnake was a great band. I did lights for them for a long time, and I loved working for them. I loved their music. And David Coverdale just decided to retire.
You get tired.
Well, that's the thing. And also you realize that your voice is you don't want to, I mean, there's ego. You don't want to go out there and read the reviews. Oh, he can't sing and stuff like that. So you say, well, you know what? I'm not even going to tempt fate. Steven
As you get
Tyler.
older, your voice does not work the same. People don't realize your muscles in your throat. You'll wear yourself out in a quarter of the time you used to. You used to get away with stuff. You could push a note without hurting yourself. And now that doesn't happen. Sometimes you can't talk for 3 days after you perform, and then you have to use everything. Humidifiers.
And Brian Johnson is 78. We do a show and we need 3 days. We have 3 days off between for him to recover because it's, he sings for almost 2.5 hours, and he sings hard, and Steven Tyler, we were getting ready to do the tour in 2023, and he blew his voice out, 3 shows into the tour. And it was another gutting thing because we had this big tour sold out, but you imagine how he felt,
Devastated.
Yeah.
You feel like you're letting everyone down.
Exactly.
Now you are going back on the road.
Mm-hmm.
This is AC/DC's supposed final tour. I never take that too serious, but I have to.
The thing is, they never say that. They've never said that. So this tour essentially started. I mean, here's the thing. In 1990, when we were doing the Razor's Edge tour, there was a press conference and they asked Malcolm, is this the final tour? And he laughed. I mean, this is 1990.
It's a little bit ago.
And,
we'll go with that.
They're a band that will never announce a final tour. They'll just play until they don't.
It's not like Elton. I think Elton did 20 years of that.
Well, that's like Phil Collins did a joke tour called the first final farewell tour, you know.
That's funny.
And Kiss has done, farewell tours. AC/DC just does a tour. And this one, we in 2023 we played a thing called Power Trip at Coachella, and it was the first show we'd done since 2000. It was just we were going to tour during COVID, but obviously that got shut down. So they did this one show, and it kind of set the tone. It's like they did great, and so then we booked a tour and started the next year. And so we've toured since 2023. We toured 2024, 2025. We've already 2026. We've been to South America and Mexico. And then now we have another run. We've already done a U.S. run last year. We've done 2 European runs. We've done Australia and South America. And this is the second run for the United States. So this is kind of what AC/DC does. We do 2, runs through the bigger, continents, basically United States and Europe. So is this it? It's right now. We finish on September 29th in Philadelphia, and I don't know anything beyond that. But I never put it past the band. Maybe they will do something in the future. Maybe they won't.
A lot of people can be enamored with what you do. And there's a feeling of, I'm so blessed. But there are going to be days where you're out there and you're going, this sucks. What do you do to remind yourself that you're blessed?
It's
That's
funny.
The best way to
it's
put
funny
it.
you say that. And this is something that I do whenever I start a new tour. Like a big tour, and I have a lighting crew. I mean, some tours I'm just, I'm using local lights and stuff like that. But let's take a tour, which is most of my tours where I have a crew, whether it's 2 guys or 5 guys, or like on AC/DC, I have 9 lighting crew. Before the first show, we do rehearsals and we set up, and then literally a couple hours before the show starts, I gather everybody up and bring them to the loading dock or a room somewhere where it's quiet. And I kind of give them my little spiel, and I say, we're getting ready to embark on a tour, and we're going to have some bad days. We're going to have days where the gear doesn't work. We have problems, stuff breaks. We're going to have days where the trucks are late or the buses are late or there's very difficult load-ins. And we're going to be under the gun to get it up and working. And you're going to be frustrated and tired and mad. And you're just going to go, let's just get this thing over with and get the heck out of here. And I said, let me remind you of something. There's going to be an arena or stadium full of people, who paid money to come and see their favorite band. And one of those people, at least one, is going to remember this show for the rest of their life. Obviously a lot more than one, but let's just take that one. They're going to talk about it. They're going to remember it. They're going to take it to their grave. What a great show that was. And you got to remember that. You got to remember why we're here. And no matter how hard the day is or how bad things go, those people still came to be entertained and see your show, and you do not want them to know that you had a bad day. You want them to walk away with a memory of a lifetime. And then I look at them and I say, do any of you have a show like that? And they all, of course, nod in agreement. Everybody does, not just one show, multiple shows. But yeah, that's the thing. It's why we're there, and it's not just okay, 90% of the audience is going to be entertained, go home and go, that was great. There's going to be people who will remember it for the rest of their life. They'll remember certain moments. Steven Tyler looked at me. Steven Tyler took my phone. And then, it's you just look at that kind of stuff. People, that's what that keeps me going.
3 biggest fanboy moments for you where you got to meet somebody and you were just blown away.
So growing up, Led Zeppelin was my favorite band, and wanting to be a guitar player, of course, Jimmy Page was my idol. I wanted to be Jimmy Page, and I even had my hair permed to look like his and wore a captain's hat, and I just loved Led Zeppelin. I did, and I got to see them in 1977 in New York at Madison Square Garden. It's still, once again, one of those memories that sticks with me the whole show. And on that one, Robert Plant looked at me. He said, "Do you remember laughter?" Pointed at me. So, like you said, there's that moment you don't forget. But so Jimmy Page. So I'm out with Emerson, Lake and Palmer in 1992, and Jason Bonham, who had known before, was opening up for us.
Yep.
The Jason Bonham Band. We got invited to this place called the Lost Weekend, which was a club in London, and it was a private party, and it was just the doors were closed, and there's a few rock stars there. Emerson, Lake and Palmer, Jason Bonham was there. Jimmy Page was there. I'd never met Jimmy Page. And I'd had a couple of beers and I was hanging out with Jason and everybody. And I said, so when are you going to do, I jokingly said, when are you going to introduce me to Jimmy Page? He says, what? You haven't met Jimmy? He said, come on. He grabbed my hand. I said, no. I was just kidding. He says, oh, no, you're not. So he grabbed my arm and brought me over and said, Jimmy, this is Cosmo. He's Emerson, Lake and Palmer's LD. He also does AC/DC. He's a good friend of mine. And I was just like, I was fanboy starstruck, and I, shook his hand, and he's very nice. Cosmo, really nice to meet you. And I said, I got to say, I'm a huge fan. It's really a pleasure to meet you. And I'm not going to go into details about that night, but we stayed up till 6 a.m. in that club talking, and it was amazing. Just meet this, and to take that story a little further, a few years later, he was out with Paige Plant, and I was down in Miami, and I was dating a girl at the time who was the box office manager. And I didn't go find him and say, remember me? I was sitting in catering with some of the crew and some friends, and Jimmy walks in looking for somebody else, and he sees me, and he crosses the room, and he goes, Cosmo. So everybody all my friends in there, all the stations was like, what? He comes over and sits down with me, and we catch up for like 5 minutes. So that was, a double fanboy moment. I've seen him many times since, and he's just really, really, really great. Another one, which is, as you said, which one is bigger? I was out with Emerson, Lake and Palmer again, in the same time period, and who was playing the Royal Albert Hall? I think it might have been Tom Petty or something, but it was some big event.
Tom Petty.
And the guitar tech is a guy named, who was the guitar tech? Alan Rogan, who was Angus's guitar tech. So he was doing the show at Royal Albert Music Hall, and I had a couple of days off. He says, come to the show, I'll get you in. He was guitar tech for George Harrison. So I go to the show, and he's bringing me, we're backstage, we're hanging out, we're talking and stuff. And then he says, I want you to meet somebody. And he walks me over and he says, George, this is Charlie. That's my real name. And I was like, I'm meeting a Beatle. It was George Harrison. I put my hand, I didn't know what to say. I said, I didn't say anything. I said, it's a pleasure to meet you. And he was really nice and said, nice to meet you. And, how are you? We just talked. And that was a fanboy starstruck moment. That was.
Oh, man. Thank you again for this opportunity. And I hope this interview was a little different than a lot of ones you do.
100%. And I as I said, I'm honored to be here. You're my friend, and I appreciate your shows. Yeah. And I'm honored to be on it, and it's great.
I love doing this, and I'd like to give out my shout out to my producer Dave, because I'm sure the only person who loved this more than me is him, because he, talking to the, what was it, the Long Island medium, You do a lot of weird ones. I'm sure this was the one he was going, oh, yeah, I like that. So thanks a lot. Well, that wraps up today's show. I'm attorney Jeff Kaufman. Thanks for joining us. Special thanks to my 2 co-hosts, my good friend, professional comedian James John, and my law partner, Craig Lind. This show is sponsored by Kaufman Lind. If you or someone you know has been in an accident, contact us at 407-500-JEFF or 407-500-5333 for a free consultation, or visit us at whenyouneedus.com.